I think from the beginning, like what prompted you to adopt calisthenics? How did you get interested in it? And do you have a background in weightlifting and, other types of athleticism?
I think from a young age, I've always been interested in sports. And I think as young as I can remember, I was like doing push ups and sit ups and things like this. And it was fun to do. And then I had older brothers who were into like body weight stuff, like pull ups and handstand push ups. I remember being like 13 or 14 trying to do handstand push ups in my bed.
Oh,
And
wow.
I've always I like the functionality of calisthenics. And then I got into fitness when I tried to really push myself I got into Insanity. Do you remember the workout DVD Insanity? I like got into that, and that was just like a real game changer for me. I was like really fell in love with fitness. And then I like transferred into just doing pull-ups and bodyweight stuff because I trained at home, and it literally just went from there. And then I got into weightlifting and got into a bit of powerlifting and really enjoyed that. But I've always done calisthenics for as long as I can remember. Because I loved doing it so much, it then inspired me to try and do my gym instructor and my PT, because I'd be in the gym and I like to help people when they're working out, and I got inspired like helping people and seeing them, it finally click that they learned something or improved something. And I did my PT, and just from then on just dived into it all. And I like the functionality of calisthenics. I like how like the term functionality gets chucked around very, very bit too much, really, but I don't think there's anything more functional than being able to use your own body. And I think that calisthenics should make the foundation of fitness for people. Like most people will get into the gym and they want to do a body part split and they do a bodybuilding routine. And I think people should learn how to control with strength, stability, their own body before they start using an external load. And if you want to get into that after, cool, but learn to use your own body first. And I think that's what really inspired me about calisthenics, and then made me want to make content on it. It's a
Yeah.
really, really powerful tool, calisthenics, and it's fun, and you can work out at home, you can work out anywhere. And I think it's just a fun way of training. Like pull-ups, my favorite exercise, hands down. What about you?
Yeah, I see a lot of pull-ups on your channel, so I'm
Yeah,
not
yeah,
surprised to hear that.
I love
For
pull-ups.
me, it was different. I actually grew up sedentary, and I played a lot of video games. I was not athletic. Me and my brother were just nerds, pretty much. And I want to say it wasn't till high school, maybe sophomore year, when I was like, okay, I got to do something about this. I was like 50 pounds overweight. I was not athletic in the slightest. And I actually got into weightlifting first. So before I found calisthenics, but I lost a lot of weight. I really changed. Like my body turned around. It was a big difference from weightlifting. And I did the strength and conditioning class in high school. But I really got into fitness at that point, and I've been in love with it ever since. What happened was I was lifting weights and bodybuilding from age 16 up through maybe 25 or so. When I was 25, I went to the doctor and found out I had high blood pressure. And I was like, why? Like what? I'm eating healthy and I'm exercising, doing all this stuff. And that kind of sent me on a different journey with the plant-based diet. And it wasn't until I adopted that plant-based lifestyle and I stopped bodybuilding that I found calisthenics, because it was this opportunity for me to do something good for me, something with resistance training, but without necessarily focusing on getting bigger and eating the caloric surplus in these cycles, and doing something that really wasn't quite good for my body and my arteries. When I found calisthenics, it was like this big sigh of relief, and I was able to just work on my endurance and learn these cool skills. And I think I was 28 when I really started training calisthenics. So it was well into my fitness journey, but I fell in love with it. And it was just also the accessibility factor, how
Yeah.
accessible it is. At that time, I had just gotten married. We were talking about having our first child. And I started working a job that was like really far from home. It was a great job opportunity. I don't regret it, but I was commuting like an hour and a half each way. So three
Wow.
hours a day. So
Yeah.
getting to the gym was like really difficult at that time. So I just started working out with calisthenics everywhere I could, at work, in the parking garage, when I woke up in the morning, and when I got home from work, and I just fell in love with it.
Did you find that the results that you got, or were the results harder to achieve switching from weights to calisthenics, or did you find better or worse, or no difference at all?
It's definitely different, but I would say if like your goal is to put on mass and you just want to be big and beastly, you want that kind of physique, then I'm going to say lifting weights is the better tool. But like you mentioned, it's also about functionality, and that's where calisthenics really comes out on top. I've noticed from training with body weight, my mobility has improved and just my core strength is much better than when I was lifting weights, because every exercise you're doing in calisthenics requires that you're maintaining your own center of gravity. You're not laying on a bench, letting a bench support you. You know, it's definitely different, but I think it's different in a good way. If you can let go of that bodybuilding mentality, is better.
Yeah, it is strange though. I don't know what it's like in America, but it's weird how bodybuilding is the foundation of fitness. Like as soon as a guy wants to start working out and building muscle, it's the default 5-day split and all the different muscle groups and the bench press and everything like that. When it's like some of the most powerful exercises, I think, for gaining muscle, like the pull-ups, dips, handstand push-ups, things like this, I think are really, really powerful exercises. It's a shame that people don't utilize it. Like people would rather use the lat pull down over the pull-up, which to me is crazy, or even like the inverted row. Like these are really powerful tools that people could use to really change the way that their body looks. I think it's a more fun way to train personally, but obviously I'm very biased on them.
Yeah, I agree. And it's funny you mentioned that, because I was doing lat pull down at the gym, you know, when I first got into fitness, and I couldn't do a pull up because I was overweight. You know, I was trying to lose weight, and I realized in my journey that if you want to do a pull up, you got to train pull ups, right? So like I had to get off that lat pull down machine and start just hanging from a bar, doing negatives, doing, you know, bent arm hangs, dead hangs, and just with enough practice, I was able to get my first pull up. So I was well into my 20s, believe it or not, when I got my first pull up.
That's the thing is, I think people think they see these people that do calisthenics, and a lot of these guys are very, very small and they don't weigh a lot, and they're banging out pull-ups for fun, but they don't realize how hard the pull-up really is. Because I think in everyday life, if you really think about it, how often are you using your back muscles? How often are you really challenging your arms? Like most people nowadays are very sedentary. They're sat down all day. They're barely using their legs. So if you think when you're lifting your whole body weight, it's a tremendous thing that you're doing. And I've always been impressed when you see someone do a solid set of pull-ups. I don't know what it is. As cringy as it sounds, I'm more impressed seeing someone do a solid set of pull-ups than I do a bench press or a deadlift now. So it's definitely an exercise that takes a lot of commitment, but it's definitely worth the time you apply to it. Because I think if you're good at pull-ups, you're going to have a strong big back. Put the time in to master it and you'll definitely get the results you're looking for.
Yeah. And I think it's the probably most challenging of all the basics when it comes to, you know, push-ups, dips, pull-ups, leg raises, squats, lunges. Pull-up is usually the biggest challenge, but also the best reward when you get it. Yeah.
And I think that sometimes the problem with it though is there's quite a lot of ways to cheat it. You know, I think I saw on one of your videos, and I've talked about it before as well, is the turkey neck pull-up. It's a common thing that happens, and I think it's very easy to use momentum and the turkey neck. It's a shame that people do that, but if you put the time into it, it's a really, really great exercise. And yeah, like I said, I'm very biased with the pull-up. I love it. If I could do one exercise for the rest of my life, it'd be the pull-up.
I don't blame you. And I still do the turkey neck thing. Like, yeah, like not consciously, but I'll catch myself at the end of a set trying to get that last rep, squeeze out that, and I'm not quite there. So I just extend, and I'm like, dang, why did I do that? I even made a video saying not to do that.
I mean, I look back at old videos where I did pull-ups where I thought I was good at pull-ups, and I look back at them and I can see I used to do it. And like, I think that's when I made the transition towards doing like chest to bar pull-ups, because you'll find you don't do it anymore, and there's a different bar then. Like it's, you know, where your range of motion always is then, and what the start and what the finish is. And since transitioning to chest to bar pull-ups and really focusing on that, my pull-ups have got better now than when I look back and I think I used to do that turkey neck thing, and I'm like, I used to just change just to try and in the end, the only person I was cheating was myself. I got a few extra numbers, but at what expense? I was ingraining poor form, you could say. That's the great thing about the pull-up, is that there's always ways you can go to progress it. And I know you talked about it in one of your videos about the thing that a lot of people don't do. It's that mind muscle connection. And I think when people do the turkey neck and they're just forcing reps through, it's very easy to forget that and realize that it's an important factor to use when any exercise, but specifically the pull-up, I reckon.
I saw this video of CrossFit pull-ups. I'm not sure what they call them, but they were like, looks like they were convulsing on the pull-up.
Oh yeah, kipping pull-ups.
Yeah, and I'm like, what is that? There is no mind muscle connection there. You're just sort of
No,
throwing your
yeah, because I keep seeing those videos where they compare calisthenics pull-ups to the CrossFit pull-ups, and
yeah.
I did watch a video on it on the reason why they do that. Because I have a friend that does CrossFit competitions, and he says like we still have to do normal pull-ups. They won't teach us how to do kipping ones until we've learned how to do proper ones, and until we master the form, and then they'll teach us. And they did say there's a reason for why they do the kipping one. And I think part of the reason was that in some of the workouts that they're doing them on, the part of it is to build up that metabolic stress for the whole body and keep the heart rate going and not be stopped, or you're not constantly stopping on the pull-up because you're building up muscular fatigue. It's more about working the whole body and keeping the heart rate up and building up the overall metabolic stress as opposed to local. So they do the kipping one so they can keep going. Because I used to do a CrossFit Cindy workout, which was 5 pull-ups, 10 push-ups, 15 squats, as many rounds as you could, but I used to do strict, and it's a fantastic workout. I can't do a kipping pull-up. I've tried, I can't do it. I'm not a huge fan of it. I don't really see the point in them, but they have a place in CrossFit. So
Yeah, I never knew that. That's interesting.
so if, for instance, you were to start calisthenics first, I've always thought like if I could turn back time, everything I know now, if I go back into training, fresh new body, what would I do? If you were to think of, let's say, 5 tips you would give to a beginner who was getting into calisthenics, what would they be?
Oh, okay. Well, the first tip would be master the basics.
Mm-hmm.
And that's kind of the approach I took when I first got into calisthenics. Like I said, I came from a weightlifting background. I wasn't too proficient in pull-ups and some of the other basics. And I'd recently seen a video by Frank Medrano, and it was like superhuman workout or something like that, but he just blew me away. So I watched some interviews with him, and he said, master the basics. And I stand by that. So that's the first thing. Just focus on those basics. The 6 that I kind of preach are push-ups, dips, pull-ups, squats, lunges, and leg raises. People throw a back bridge in there. I don't really consider that a basic, but you can definitely work on it. L sit, there's different stuff you can throw in as basics. Master the basics would be the first thing. Second thing is, if there's some specific skill you want to train, find someone who's achieved it. Find someone and ask them to be your coach, or see if they have a program. It's the SAID principle, right? So I guess that'd be my second bit of advice, is exercise the SAID principle. Whatever you train for, whatever demands you put on your body, that's what you're going to adapt to. So once you've mastered those basics and you want to start training a skill, it's important to find someone who's achieved that. Ask them to be your coach, or see if they have a program. Do exactly what they say, because there comes a point where you don't want to just mess around anymore and go around with the basics. Mobility, that would be, I guess, number 3, is don't neglect mobility. That's a big one that I did. I didn't do a lot of stretching in the beginning, and the basics will improve your flexibility and mobility to an extent, but you eventually want to start training that separately and not just rely on those basic movements to improve. So I need 2 more for a beginner.
You don't have to, but 5 is just a nice number. 5 is a nice number to go with, but you can stick it through if you want.
Don't neglect your cardio. As an endomorph, I'm a big eater, and I have found that I need to do my cardio. And there's people out there in the fitness world who say not to. They say just do your resistance training, do intermittent fasting and pay attention to your diet. But that doesn't really work for me. I have to, at least 3 or 4 times a week, I get out there for a jog, or even just a walk, like a long walk.
Do that for calorie burn, or do you do it as I want to work my heart as well and make sure that I'm not neglecting that, or is it just purely calories?
Heart and lungs are really, heart and lungs are important. That's probably the main reason, but also it lends to me staying lean, because like I said, I can eat. And I don't want I typically train just 3 days a week, and I don't want my other 4 days to be too sedentary, especially in the winter when I'm not getting outside as much. So I always have a way. I have a bike in the basement. I have a stationary bike, but in the summer, like now, I get out there, I get lots of sun. I'm usually out there for a couple hours a day.
Perfect. Yeah. Get some vitamin D as well. It's always good.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. And let's see, don't neglect cardio. I guess my last bit of advice would be to just be open-minded and try different things and see what works best for you and for your goals.
No, definitely. I think that can be the issue as well with calisthenics sometimes, is you get it in all different groups of different modes of training, but you can get a bit dogmatic about certain things. So I definitely recommend get out there, try different forms of training, because you might find one that you love. You get the spice of life. It makes training more fun. And at the end of the day, training should be fun. And that's what allows consistency, and consistency is key.
Yeah. Yeah. Oh, and let me add another one is don't be afraid to go into maintenance mode. I've had to
Yeah.
do that many times. It's like, it seems like on YouTube and with influencers across social media, they like to say that you should always be pushing yourself, always pushing for some goal. And I agree with that. It's good.
Yep.
But if life gets busy and you just need to go through the motions for a month or two, there's nothing wrong with that, just to maintain.
No, I agree with that. I think, as weird as it sounds, like, I think we do get pushed within fitness that we always have to focus on the optimal, and we constantly have to be trying to go to the max. We need to be as big and strong as we possibly can, but you don't always have to do that, and it isn't always possible if you've got a busy lifestyle. If you need to take a scale it back a little bit, it's about fitting it into your life and making this a long-term progress, and sometimes adding in some maintenance is really powerful.
Yeah, it's like Kyle Bogman once said in one of his videos. I think he said he views fitness as like physical hygiene practice.
Yeah.
It's just something he does every day. And I'm like, wow, that's kind of how I view it too. It's just something, there's times where, yes, I'm striving for this goal and I'm really putting in a lot of effort. But then there's other parts of my life where it's just this thing I'm doing because it's like a physical hygiene practice.
Yeah.
I feel like we're obligated, to take care of our bodies, and fitness is part of that. So
Yeah. It's when I've talked to my partner about trying to keep motivated and consistent with training, it's like, we all go to work. We don't always want to go to work, but we know that we have to, because we've got to pay the bills. We've got obligations in life, and we should have that same mentality when it comes to fitness, because we only get one body. We have to look after it, and it allows us to handle what life throws at us. And we have to kind of get ourselves into the point of, as we need to eat, as we need to sleep, we also need to exercise. Yeah. So find a way in which you can challenge. And like for me, I wouldn't say weird, but if I go 2 or 3 days without a workout, I kind of feel a little bit like I need to do something. Like if I don't do a workout, sometimes I feel like I haven't achieved something for the day. Like for me, it's my nature's antidepressant. I feel positive. I feel better. I can think things through more clearly once I do a workout. And it's nice if you push yourself to see your performance or gains in what you're doing. That inspires me to keep going. And that's why I'm able to stay consistent, because I don't think I would not be able to work out. And I hope I'm able to maintain that once I have kids, but I'll have to hide them away so I can do some pull-ups maybe, or they can jump on and hang on to me and I can do weighted calisthenics with them.
They do. Yeah. They'll join you. It's pretty cool. I think, a good word to add there is discipline. It's a discipline. And what's cool is that the discipline that you build through your fitness can actually bleed onto other parts of your life. It can you become disciplined with your fitness. Now you're better at all the other things that you should do, but you don't necessarily want to do.
Yeah, because to achieve any goal within fitness, it's that consistency and that discipline to have a plan and stick through it and follow through. And you'll find that what works with fitness can apply and work in other areas of your life. That that consistency, discipline, and even taking your time to understand what's going on so you can better understand what you're getting yourself into can really help you achieve that goal a lot more efficiently. Well, so I was going to go through, if you don't mind, I've got 5 tips. I thought.
Yeah, go for it. Yeah. I want to hear yours.
So first one, similar to yours, which was go minimal but fundamental. So I'm more of a believer of minimalist style of training. I feel people, especially when they first start out as a beginner, they feel that they have to do lots and lots of different exercises, hit the body from lots of different angles to be able to get results. And I think from a minimal standpoint, I think you can get more gains. And from a minimal standpoint, you can always add if you need to. Mm-hmm. So, something like if you're a beginner, an inverted row, push up, and maybe a squat or a lunge, I think is a fantastic place to start. You can change the angle of your body for the pull up, for the inverted row or the push up to find where that works well for you. And you're hitting your whole body and it's easier to learn. So if you're new, you've only got so much energy, focus, mental, physical energy to be able to learn exercises to get efficient with them. So if you've got less exercises to learn, it's far easier and faster to master them like that. And obviously if you're stronger or you can build to it, a pull up, a dip, and a step up or a pistol, if you've got the mobility, or combine the two of them. And I think you've got a great workout there. Second one was training to failure. It's something I think people think they have to train to failure to get results, but I think there's more and more studies coming out now that you don't need to. And in some cases, it can hold back your training, specifically for strength training. But I think overall hypertrophy, I think it can harm it as well, because volume's a driver for hypertrophy. And I don't know if you've noticed this, but if you go to an all-out set and you smash it really, really hard, let's say you can do 10 pull-ups, let's say, if you grind up that last rep, all of your sets afterwards, the volume really dramatically drops off. Where if you were to say maybe hold it back by a rep or two, you could probably consistently hit 8.
Yes.
7 or 8. So overall, your volume will be higher. So that's a good driver for hypertrophy. And then with training to failure, it's less likely to hit your CNS central nervous system as hard. So you can work out more often and you're less likely to get DOMS, which means if you can work out more often, that can be really beneficial, especially as a beginner, because the more that we can do something, the faster we can learn something. So if we were able to work out 2, 3, 4, 5 times, we're going to learn the pull-up, the inverted row, the push-ups a lot faster. But if you have to do it, I recommend the last set of your exercise if you really want to do it, because it is good for pushing you beyond your boundaries and testing yourself, and that can be good. And it's good for building mental fortitude, but it's not a necessity. It's just a tool I think you should use. Don't just use it all the time. Third one is minimum effective dose, which is if you can grow doing 3 sets, why do 10? If you can grow doing 2 exercises per body part, why do 5? So instead of thinking I've got to go in there and annihilate the muscle, think what's the minimum amount of work that I can do to stimulate growth and then stop? Because then less time, it's less commitment, but it's easier on your recovery. And then you can always add volume if you need to. And then to progress in the future as you become more intermediate, you've always got that room for more volume and more work to do. Think of it as training smarter as opposed to just harder for the sake of it. And just think, if you were to do 1 set, you stimulate however much for growth. If you do 2 sets, you don't get double the stimulation, you don't get double the growth. You can only build so much muscle in a given time. If you're doing 3 sets and then you do 10, you start getting diminishing returns of every single set afterwards. You don't get 10 times the results from doing 10 sets compared to 1. So it's like you've got to balance that. So just find an area that if you're growing and you're responding and you're doing well, don't think about adding more for the sake of it. 4th one was learning about your recovery. So as a beginner, your work capacity and your ability to recover is not very good. So when we think about what's the best program, what's the best exercises, should we do high reps, should we do low rep? All of our focus is on stimulus, but not a lot of it is on recovery. So we know that we should sleep 7 to 9 hours. We know we should get adequate protein and all these different things, but we also have to take into account our rest times and how much volume we're doing and how much time between each workout. Because you might find if you do a full body workout Monday, Wednesday, Friday, you might work out on the Monday and everything's good. You work out on a Tuesday and your performance might be hindered. You might not be able to do as much. Your volume might not be as good. And then Friday comes, maybe you're struggling to make progress. But when you come back to the Monday, you might find you can really work out well. So you could look at that and think, okay, maybe it might be better that instead of me doing 1 rest day in between sessions, maybe I should add in 2 and see how my body responds. Because it's not about how hard you work or the amount of work you do. It's, are you seeing progress and are you moving towards your goal? That's the most important thing, is your ability to build muscle gets stronger, not what you're doing. It's adapt it so you can recover, so you can then grow. And then the 5th one would be focus on mastering form over progressions. So progressive overload and focusing on increasing your reps or your sets or harder progressions is great. And you should be focusing on that, but focus more on mastering the exercise itself, because that will take you far further than jumping from 10 pull-ups to 15, because that gap, that increase that you've made, was it at the expense of something else? Could you have made better progress mastering the pull-up and thinking, okay, I can do 10, but can I make those 10 better? Because if you can focus on that mind muscle connection, or maybe going from you're not turkey necking anymore, maybe you're doing chest to bar, the progress you'll make will be far superior than going from 10 to 15 or 15 to 20. So that would be my 5 rehearsed.
Cool. Yeah, those were good. And they were really specific. And some of them reminded me of ones I shared, like when you talked about mastering the basics, basically on the last one. Yeah. It's like, it's not just about numbers. It's about execution, really, first and foremost.
I watched that one video of yours where it was stop doing this and it was counting reps. And when I watched that, I was just like, it's a really, really interesting concept, because you'll find that once you stop, it's very hard not to count at first. And it ends up you're finding that a lot of your focus is on counting, when really it's just like, don't count, just do the form and really focus on what you're doing. Maybe it's that mind muscle connection, that squeeze, whatever it is. And you'll find that you get so much more out of every single rep if you just stop counting. And then obviously you don't have to do it forever, like you said, but it's a great test. It's a great thing to add into your training every now and then to remind you of what's important. So reps don't mean much. They're just indicators of intensity or overall volume. It's not the reps that make you grow. It's the work that you're doing and the exercise, the tension, the form. That's what makes you grow, not 5 reps, 10 reps, 20 reps. It's not that. It's the work that you do. And I think that was a good little tip. Don't always count. Sometimes it's not always the best.
Yeah, for me, it's something I return to for like a week or two at a time. I always go back to counting because it's just in my nature. But whenever I find myself chasing the numbers and sacrificing form, which I think is inevitably going to happen at some point, go back to a week of not counting. And it's almost like a deload because you're not necessarily going to failure. I mean, you might, but you're so focused on the mind muscle connection that it's like this detox where you're just like letting go of the numbers and you're getting back in touch with that mind muscle connection and form.
Yeah, and I think that's the really important thing there is what are you sacrificing to hit those numbers? Because you'll find if you have a rep goal and that is your overall thing, it's what do you sacrifice? Are you suddenly cutting range of motion? Are you doing a turkey necking? Are you using momentum? Are you rushing the eccentric, the concentric just to hit that number? And then you've hit the number, but was the workout as effective as it could have been? Because that's what's going to lead to progress. And I think, not counting every now and again, I think is a great way of, resetting that way of doing your reps. I think that's a really powerful tool to use. Definitely.
I would like to talk about when you were going through your 5 tips for a beginner. Well, one of them, I think it was the second one, sparked my memory of the thought of weighted calisthenics, but also myofibrillar versus sarcoplasmic hypertrophy, because that's something I used to not even believe that, to be honest. Even though I learned about it, I was like, I don't know. But in my experience, I have noticed when I really kick up the volume in my workout, so I'm doing lots of sets, right? And forget rep range. It's more about how many sets I'm doing. Kicking up the volume in that way, I do puff up. I do get bigger, but it's short-lived, right?
Yes,
And
definitely.
If I deload, and I decrease the volume, then that extra mass just goes away. I'm not kidding. Within a week, I look smaller. And that kind of goes in line with the idea that that's sarcoplasm, right? It's fluid retention. It's glycogen and water and all the things that convert to ATP. And it aligns with when I used to take creatine. I would load creatine like is recommended on the supplement label, and I would literally puff up.
So I think it sucks water into the cell, doesn't it?
Yeah, well, it's another constituent that can convert to ATP. So it's like the same concept. Whereas what I've been doing lately for the last 6 weeks or maybe even 8 weeks is like a more minimalist approach where I'm just doing 3 days a week, 3 sets per exercise, everything minimalist.
Similar to what I'm doing. Yeah,
but I'm going heavy. I'm putting on the weight vest on everything. And my progressive overload is not volume for the past 8 weeks. It's been weight. And that's how I'm keeping the movements the same, like weighted chin-ups, weighted push-ups, weighted dips, weighted squats and lunges. And I'm doing good mornings as like a deadlift kind of substitute. But like just doing weighted, and I feel great. I think that's something worth mentioning is like there's those 2 ways to build mass, and it seems like one might have an advantage over the other depending on what you're going for, right?
So I'll share a story with you with that, because I've done a video on difference between sarcoplasm and myofibrilla hypertrophy, because when I found out about it, I was like, wow. I remember I used to do more high volume stuff when I was younger, and I remember I went on holiday, and within a week I lost a lot of size, and I was just like, why am I putting in all this effort in eating all this food, working out really hard if I can lose it so quickly? And I just was looking up why it happened and then that's when I stumbled across the different forms of hypertrophy, because I think most people just think there's just hypertrophy and then there's strength training. They don't realize that it branches out. And then I think the key thing was that the myofibrilla, you're actually building contractile tissue. And that was the thing that really stood out for me. Is like, what's the point in being bigger but not being stronger? What's the point in putting that effort in just building basically the sarcoplasm, the energy reserves around the muscles? What's the point in bigging that? And it's far easier for the body to just, like a balloon, just deflate it if it's not being used anymore. And I think you brought up, you spoke about it before, that the SAD principle, what you test yourself is what you improve, let's say. And if you're not doing high rep and you're not giving your body a requirement to keep hold of those energy reserves, it will just get rid of it. Where if you do the myofibrilla, the heavy loading, the mechanical tension, really building muscle, laying down contractile tissue, it's far easier to maintain that by just doing a little bit of, you could just do probably a couple sets in a week and you'd still maintain that muscle. and you build that thicker, harder, denser muscle, and it's the size that you actually gain, far easier to keep, far easier to maintain, and it actually has a use. And I was like, from then on, it was like, I've always preached or gone on, and I've always focused more on low rep training. And I prefer the form of training. I've never liked the idea that I'm stopping because I'm getting that burn. I prefer that feeling that I'm stopping because I literally have no more in me, and I've given everything my all. And then having that ability to, what's the expression? You get those people that are very, very big, yet they're not that strong. I don't see the point. Like, I've been big before, and I don't really advise it that much. But if you're not big, and if you're big but you're not strong, I really don't see the point. It's like, I'm always been more performance based than anything. But if you're not strong, I don't really see the point in being big. With weighted calisthenics specifically, and we could talk about the difference between weighted calisthenics and progressive calisthenics, but one of the major benefits, and you talked about it, that you're doing the same exercise that you were doing before, is that the benefit of weighted calisthenics is you're still doing the same exercise. So you get to put more time into mastering that exercise, as opposed to if you'd move into progressive calisthenics, you're leaning further forward, or you're leaning more on one arm, and now the movement isn't the same anymore. Where at least if you're doing a weighted pull-up, it's still a pull-up, so you can get better at the pull-up. You're just making it harder. And I definitely prefer low rep training. So do you think you'll go back to high rep, or do you think you'll alternate, or what's your...
I like to alternate. I use kind of a more traditional periodization approach. So I'll do like a low rep. Lately, I've been mainly in the 5 to 8 rep range, very strength focused, a little bit creeping up there to the hypertrophy range, if you want to, believe that. But that's what I've been focusing on. So after this cycle, I'll go into the 8 to 12 rep range, just to change things up, or 8 to 15. But I'm really just in love lately with weighted calisthenics. And I've done the progressive calisthenics, even gymnastics kind of style progressions, and I'm not bashing them. They're great. If that's what someone wants to do, if you enjoy that, go for it. But like we both touched on, I like keeping the movement pattern the same.
Yep.
Right. So if I'm doing, say, chin-ups, right, because I want to engage more of those biceps, just throwing an extra 5 pounds on me to apply progressive overload right now is my preference, because I'm keeping that same exact movement pattern.
Yep.
And I'm building strength. Exactly. Like my experience was exactly the same as yours. 1 week off, lost a lot of mass when I was doing the sarcoplasmic style training, that high rep, high volume. For me, rep range is kind of irrelevant. It's more how many sets I'm doing. At least that's what I've noticed. So I'm down to 3 sets per exercise, as few exercises as I can do to hit all the muscle groups. Very minimalist. I love it. And I'm just really embracing cardio on the off days. Like I said, 2 hours. I'm usually going on a walk for 2 hours, or I'll jog for like 45 or 60 minutes. And that way I'm keeping active on those off days, because I'm the kind of dude, I'll put on body fat if I'm not keeping active on those rest days. So.
Yeah, because I think it's one of those ones that once you've gained fat cells, you never lose them. So if you've been big before, carried a lot of body fat, it's very easy for you to gain weight. Like for me, I love my food. And I tried to get big years ago, as big as I possibly could. And I think I got up to 16 and a half stone once. So I think I was like 100, is that 105, 110 kilos?
Wow.
Something like that. Yeah. So I got big. That's when I was doing my powerlifting. And I was still doing pull-ups and dips then, but I just love food. And then if I'm trying to lose weight now, it's so easy for me to gain weight. I know a good portion of that's going to be fat, but it's so easy to gain it that you've got to be really careful. Once you've been big or had a lot of body fat, it's very easy to gain it. You touched upon it with you're enjoying the weighted calisthenics. That's one thing that you said about adding weight. I think that's definitely one thing that really makes weighted calisthenics for me more enticing than progressive calisthenics, is because to create the progressive overload is so much simpler. So instead of you having, and the other thing is it's easy to make, and it's easy to manage, and it's easy to replicate from every session. So if you're doing like a planche push-up, or you're leaning over to learn to do the one arm pull-up, it's very hard to replicate session to session, rep to rep, that exact lean and that exact amount of the proportion of your left arm's lifting so much, where every single session that you're doing from now on, I'm lifting 5, 10, 15 kilos on the pull-up, and I can replicate that session after session. And I think that's a very powerful tool when it comes to being consistent, is that you can repeat that over and over again.
I agree 100%. Yeah, you hit the nail on the head right there. That's, like, again, I'm not bashing the progressive calisthenics. If that's what someone wants to do, it's great. Yes, being consistent, being able to replicate 100% session to session is important. Yeah, weighted calisthenics is the way to go for it in my, but I went through a phase in my late 20s, early 30s where I was doing the, handstand push-ups and stuff and training that, and it's fun. Don't get me wrong. When you have that
Yep.
itch, go for it. That's
Have,
just
have you not tried weighted handstand push-ups yet?
no, no.
No. No.
I'm still plenty challenged with the
Yeah.
body weight handstand push-up.
Yeah. The thing is, as well, was I think we briefly talked about it. It's that, do people still consider weighted calisthenics? Do you?
Yeah, I think well, for me, it's like a perfect marriage of the two.
Hmm.
You're doing body weight exercises, right? So it's calisthenics, but you're adding that weightlifting element to it, that simplicity of just incrementally adding a little bit of weight
Yeah.
when you want to apply progressive. I think is genius. And there are purists who will say it's not true calisthenics, but whatever, I don't care.
Yeah, I had a subscriber once ask me, they shared a link to a video. I won't get that 5 or 10 minutes back. Watching this video where someone went into the idea and exercise after exercise, why weighted calisthenics is no longer calisthenics. And I was just like, he was like, what did you think of the video? I was like, I'm not getting that time back. And the whatever answer that he felt that he was giving me is not going to change my training. Like it's a pointless thing to be thinking about. And when we talked about it, it got me thinking about like what sort of way in which I would look at it is, if you were doing a pull-up as a calisthenics exercise, if you were adding a dip belt, or if you're going to add a vest, or if you're going to add a backpack with some books or some rocks in it, or as I brought up before, let's say you've got kids and they want to jump on, you put them on their back, or you went, you know what, my body weight is my resistance with calisthenics. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to do a bulk and I'm going to try and gain 5 or 10 kilos. And then you end up doing a pull-up. In all of those scenarios, it's still a pull-up. The only thing that's different is the mode in which you're adding to the intensity that's placed on those muscles. But in essence, it's still a pull-up. So whether you think it doesn't really matter. It's just a tool that we can use to get bigger and get stronger. Have fun with it. I definitely recommend more people to do weighted calisthenics.
Yeah, I feel like they're getting a little too dogmatic at times if you're splitting hairs like that, It's like, I don't know, there's so many different ways to train, try them all. And I think if someone wants to be just strictly body weight, by all means, go for it,
Yeah.
But if
yeah, I guess it depends on their reasoning. Like you'll find that some people, it will be they don't have access to be able to do weighted calisthenics, so they convince themselves that they don't need any other form of training, and then make out that that's the only way you should train. But the problem is that, and my idea of it is, if there's anyone on the internet that you're listening to for fitness advice, is for arbitrary reasons, coming up for reasons why you shouldn't do exercises, you shouldn't really be listening to that person. You really should be listening to someone that's saying there are pros to cons to this, to that, but get out there and experiment it and see what you like, because you came from a weightlifting background. I've done weightlifting. We can both testify, whether we do it now or not, that it has its place and it has its ability to get you bigger and stronger. And you're probably going to find the best of both worlds, being open to doing either. Be open to it, test it, see what you like. And you might even like CrossFit and kipping pull-ups, but have fun with it. That's the most important thing, I guess.
exactly, that's the beauty of body weight training, is there's so many different modalities, right? There's all these different types of calisthenics. There's weighted calisthenics, there's gymnastics, there's yoga, there's primal movement. There's so many ways to move your body. So I'm in no way saying that there's this way is the right way, but right now where I'm at in life, I'm just loving weighted calisthenics.
And that's again, someone else listening to you, watching that, might go, okay, I might give it a go. And then they might fall in love with it. They might really enjoy it. They might not, but at least they tested it. Yeah, precisely. And that's the thing, is that is like food. There's so many different things that we can test. We might love some, we might hate some, but the most important things, we try it. And, you might find a new passion that you're into. You might think, oh, I don't want to do mobility or any flexibility work, but then you try yoga or Pilates and you love it. And that's the spice of life, is that there's different ways in which we can exercise. And I think more power to you. Try do whatever you enjoy, because eventually, in a year or two, you might get bored of weighted calisthenics and you might try, don't know, you might get back into progressive. Or you've done a little bit of skill work, have you?
Yeah, a little bit. Yeah.
Do you not do much anymore, or
not really? I'm maintaining my handstand, and I trained front lever really hard, and I got to a point where I was pretty happy with it. It wasn't perfect. My hips were dipping a lot at times, but I just looked at how much time and effort I put into that one skill, and how much I got out of it, like the return on investment. And I was like, I think when people train that kind of stuff, it's for the show, to be honest.
Definitely. Yep.
It's like, hey, look at me, look what I can do. And that's not my personality.
Yeah.
Like I can do a pretty decent handstand, I can usually hold it for 30 to 45 seconds, but I don't go to parties and say, check this out. I can do a
Yeah.
handstand. That's not me.
Yeah. I think that's definitely what put me off. I know some people are, because the way I do handstand push-ups, people go, "Oh, that's not the way you should do it." And I'm like, but this is the easiest way I find popping up. And I like doing handstand, but I'm not remotely interested in learning the freestanding one. I don't need to, I'm not like the front lever. Like if people want to learn it and get into skills, it's probably not many calisthenics channels that aren't focused on skills, but for me, I really don't see the point in them, and the amount of time you have to put in to learn them, but also the time that you have to maintain them. I'd rather spend that time doing something else. Fitness wise, or in my life, I think I really don't see the functional carryover of learning, say, the front lever or the human flag. It's not going to benefit my training or my life anyway. So for me, it's not something if people want to learn it, that's all for them. But the skills aren't for me.
Yeah, there's a huge sense of accomplishment when you reach a skill like that, but then it's just kind of over. You're like, all right.
Yeah. I think the only one I think, again, has carryover and is functional and has the ability to be an effective movement is the muscle up. It's probably the only one I recommend people steer more towards the ring one, I think, because I think that's the one you can really use to build muscle, and it's easier to learn than the bar one. I think the bar one, strict one, is really, really difficult, and it's most people will learn it using momentum, which kind of takes the point away if you're trying to use it to build muscle.
That's how I learned it.
Yeah.
Momentum.
Yeah. But the ring one is, like I said, it's through the whole entirety of the thing. You're using that tension, that stability, and that control, like that just builds muscle, and then it works to stabilize the muscles as well. So a big fan of that, but that's the only skill I would say I've put time into learning and actually done. Each their own. I guess that's the great thing about calisthenics. Another thing I want to talk to you about is splits and programming. Like, do you have, for a beginner, an intermediate, for yourself, do you have a program or a split that you would recommend, or what are you doing as well? What sort of program are you doing now, and what sort of program or split would you recommend to, again, someone that was getting into calisthenics?
Okay, so for a beginner, I stick to full body. That's what my top recommendation. It's, there's a lot of science backing it up, but also in my experience that full body workouts are just very effective at triggering, you're producing more testosterone. They're better for like leaning out and for strength gains. It feels like a more robust workout because you're working all of your musculature, like doing push, pull, and legs all in one workout, basically.
Yeah,
push up, pull up, and squats. But then as you get into intermediate, depending on your goals, that's when branching out into split training can be a good thing, I think. I'm actually still a big fan. If I were to train for physique, I would go to the traditional push, pull, legs. But
would you do that? Would you do that 3 times a week, or would you do it so you got frequency twice, so you do 6 days a week, or would you just do it?
I used to do it. I used to do this.
I've done it.
But now I would do it 3 times. I would do, especially at my age, but I would do 3 workouts, 1 push, 1 pull, 1 legs. And I would do it with some considerable intensity and volume, and then have 4 rest days. Yeah. I mean, there's so many different splits. If you're training for skills, bent arm, straight arm is a great one. I learned that from Overcoming Gravity. There's so many ways. There. Yep. There it is. Yeah. Is that the 2nd edition? I think it is.
So yeah, 2nd edition. Yeah.
That's a great book. But yeah, it's like there's many different splits you can do: upper body, lower body, or you could do a bro split and break it up by muscle group if you're training for physique. I see nothing wrong with it. So, but it's like I said, for me, I recommend that for intermediate. For beginners, I think full body is a good starting point. And what I'm doing right now is just like an A-B split. So I've got like a workout A and a workout B. My workout A is mostly push and core, and then my workout B is pull and lower body. And I'm just sort of doing ABA and then BAB and kind of alternating.
Splits, I completely agree with you. Full body is a really great way to train. I think the problem is sometimes people think that it's only for beginners, but I think all people can benefit from doing it.
Yeah, I should have mentioned that.
It's like I said, I like doing it because you work your whole body. It leaves less room. It fits into your lifestyle far easier. So if you're really busy one day and you have to go away and you usually do 3 workouts a week, and suddenly you can only do 2, or you can work out Monday and you can't work out until the Saturday, you've still got 2 sessions. You've still done pull-ups twice, dips twice, whatever it is. That's really effective. It allows you to get more frequency in, which is really great as a beginner to learn stuff. So the more you do it, the faster you learn. So I think it has that benefit, and it's good for getting weekly volume in. So I think full body is what I'm doing at the minute. So I've got like 2 workouts that I do back to back. So I was doing sets of 10, but it's got too hot now that every time I do sets of 10, I started getting sick. So I was like, right, I'm dropping it back down to sets of 5 now. And I'll do workout A will be, say, weighted pull-ups, weighted handstand push-ups, weighted step-ups, and calf raises, and I'll do them always like a giant set to make it a bit faster, so I feel a little bit more athletic. 3 minutes rest, and then do it 3 times. Then I'll have like maybe 5 minutes rest, move on to the second one, which will be weighted inverted rows, weighted dips. I've got a Roman chair hyperextension machine, so I've been doing weighted those for lower back, and then I'll do knee raises, and I'll do all as one giant set, 5 reps, and just do those back to back. And I just do that. I'm averaging like, I'll do a resistance workout, and then I'll do a cardio workout, and then I'll have a day off, and then I'll just repeat that. And if I feel like doing another workout, I'll do another workout. But some days I'll come in and I'll be like, my back still feels a bit tender, I'll have another day off, or I'll just do cardio. So my cardio at the minute is either, my partner's got a Peloton, so I use that sometimes, which is pretty good fun to use. It's a little bit different. It's nice if you're used to doing your own programmings and working out. It's nice to have someone do that for you. You can literally just switch off and go, tell me what you want me to do, and I'll do it. And then you can just switch off and just really go for it. Or I've got an air bike in the garage, so sometimes I do like some stuff on that. But I normally do those 2 workouts at the minute. I've done all the old stuff back in the day where I used to do like push-pull legs, and I'll have a day off, push-pull legs. And that was really, really great for being able to go harder and hit things a bit more. But I was doing that more when I was doing weightlifting. But I also think upper body, lower body can be really good. It can be a little bit harder, I think, with calisthenics, because calisthenics is very upper body dominant compared to lower body. I find like there's more exercises, I find, and it's far easier to really overload it if you're really doing body weight stuff. But they're good programs to use as well. But I just like doing full body. For me, it's the one that I've always stuck to.
Yeah, I love full body too. I should have mentioned, I recommend it for beginners, but if you want to stick to it perpetually, I mean, it's a great way to train. And I think that's the way we're meant to use our bodies, like in surviving in nature throughout our history as humankind. We wouldn't be just using our push muscles one day and our pull muscles the next. So
no. And I think as well is the great thing about full body is it puts a natural break on volume. So unless you want to do a workout that's 2 or 3 hours long, there's only so much volume you can get done in half an hour or an hour. So sometimes it can be a good break for you, so you can control volume as well and not do too much, and it hits your recovery. But it's a nice, like I said, if you're doing like that workout that I do, I'm averaging 6 sets per body part. So it's not a huge amount, but I can do that 3 times a week. So now we're up to 18 sets of volume, which is right in that good middle ground. But if I only do 12 1 week, that's fine. If I do 18, if I end up going, I feel really good, let's chuck in a 4th workout. I've got that variability there that I can add that in. But if I want to work out more, I can. But it's a nice little break that I can control my volume. And then if you're only doing 3 sets like you are, it's far easier to maintain a high level of focus and also energy. So if you only have to do 3 sets, it's far easier to stress the energy you've got between 3 as opposed to doing more. And so you can put more into every single set as well. And then before you know it, 3 sets are done, you're now onto another body part, and you're like, all right, now I can give this everything I've got. And I think it's a great way to control that, and for long-term training as well.
I want to mention that one of the beauties of minimalist training is that, you're not looking like, oh, I've got to do 4 sets or 5 sets of this exercise. You're like, I'm just doing 2 or 3 sets. So you have more of that mental energy to put into it. You go into each set, like, I'm going to give this my everything. And you also mentioned rest. Yes, I want to echo that. 3 minutes minimum, especially when you're focusing on strength gains. Now, if you're doing circuits and you're just trying to work on your endurance, then by all means, shorter rests are fine. But with the way we're talking about training, especially if you're doing weighted calisthenics and lower rep range, yes, 3 to 5 minutes is good.
The energy systems that are used, they need that long to resynthesize. And then I think as well, it's you then, when you're doing that, you realize it's how you perform in the exercise that's going to bring the gains. And if you can perform better by resting longer, you're just going to get more out of it. I know some people get bored waiting. You'll perform better by just waiting that little bit longer and having more energy. You'll do a lot better. So it's definitely worth 3 to 5 minutes.
One more thing, the A-B split, I really love, because that can be full body. You know what I'm saying? It's like, and it like right now I'm doing mainly, it's like push and core, you could say, for the workout A. It feels almost like a full body workout to me. My workout B is definitely, because I'm doing pull and legs. It's just, I just want to mention that A/B split is a good strategy to use a full body workout while doing something different from session to session.
Yeah, because you could say the workout that I'm doing, you could make an AB, and then that's good because you could then, there's a little bit of variety, because sometimes if you're doing the same workout over and over again, it can get a little bit boring. But with the AB, ABA, BAB, can be really good to mix it up a little bit. And then if you've got more exercises as the minimalist that you do want to add in, that adds in that flexibility that you can add in. So if there's a little exercise you want to add in, it gives you that flexibility there, which is really good, I think.
Yeah. And the recovery, because now you've got the B workout between the A's and vice versa. So you have, you have that extra recovery time too.
So you mentioned in your workout that you do core work. I had this question asked to me from a viewer. Do you think that we need to have direct core work as a beginner? Do you recommend doing core work, or do you think you can get away with not doing direct core work?
You don't need to. I mean, you don't even need to work out, right? But like, you don't need to hit your core directly. I find that when you're doing exercises properly, you should be bracing your core on every exercise. So you're getting work. The reason why I like to have core, especially in the summer, is because I start to get ab definition in the summer and I'm outside at the beach in the pool. And I just want them to pop a little more. So I throw in leg raises, stuff like side planks and things to just work the whole core.
So it's more for aesthetics for you than it is to have a functional role in your program.
Yes, because I find that the calisthenics, when done properly, work your core enough. They really do, in my opinion. So I'm not adding in the core work for like, oh, my core needs to be stronger for what I need to do in life. I'm adding it because I just want my six pack to be a little more defined, I guess. So it's aesthetic.
No, that's like I said. What you said was what I replied back was, which is really when you're doing these big core exercises, your focus should be contracting your core through the entirety of it. If you're doing the pull up, the dip, push up, whatever it is, the push up is basically a moving plank, really. So you should be contracting that as much as you can. And again, the core is to stabilize the spine, to transfer energy between the upper body and lower body. So if you're contracting that while doing these exercises, you're using the core. But obviously, some direct core work can be handy if you want to make your abs pop. So it has its place. I'm started doing leg raises, and I've been doing a Roman chair because I really want to work my lower back and my glutes and hamstrings, which can be a little bit harder, I find, with calisthenics. Like, so if you were to think of, for instance, going on with that, pros and cons of calisthenics. What pros are there to calisthenics, and what cons do you think there are? And what the cons that you think there are, how would you fix them?
Pros to calisthenics are the accessibility factor. I love that. I can do them anywhere, Even if I don't do them weighted, fine. I can still at least get in a workout. Also, like I said, just working basics is great for strength, for developing your endurance, and also your mobility. So it's working many different domains of fitness in just one training modality. I could go on and on. There's the aesthetics. If you really train, if you train a lot with calisthenics, you can get a pretty sweet lean physique. One of the biggest cons, I would say, with calisthenics, though, is the lower body. And you touched on this before. There's a lot of denial on that topic. Whenever I touch on it on my channel, people chime in and say, you're doing it wrong, blah, blah, blah. I've gone high rep with pistols. I've tried. I'm actually waiting on I'm going to get a new base bench from Base Blocks because I want to train Nordic curls, because I'm just trying to find where's that sweet spot with leg training with calisthenics. But honestly, I have personally found that that's a weakness. It's a weak point. You can do plyometrics, you can go high volume, but now your workouts are going to get longer. I personally just like adding weight to exercises for my lower body. Traditional, squats and deadlifts. Oh gosh, deadlift is one of my favorite exercises. And I have some dumbbells, and I'll pick them up now and then and train deadlifts. Yeah,
deadlifts used to be my favorite and the exercise I was best at in the gym. I don't know if it's just the way that I was built. I wasn't as good at barbell squatting. I was good at deadlifts, but
it just feels so good. It feels so good to lift heavy weight like that. Just pick it up. And I do good mornings though. That to me is like a good substitute for calisthenics.
I think the hex bar or the trap bar deadlift is a really good tool as well. It's just that safer version of a kind of a hybrid between a squat and a deadlift in one, that you can also, if you want to do farmer's walk with them, which is really good for your core and it's functional as well. Like, I think that's a really good exercise to do. But no, I completely agree with you. I think
if I can add one more con I want to mention, another con to calisthenics is when a client tells me that they want to develop their physique, they want to get big, I'm honest with them. I say, that's what, dumbbells and benches and barbells are best for. Honest, I'm just being honest. Don't get me wrong. I think the calisthenics physique that you can get, especially if you do weighted calisthenics, is still great. It's just not, I think if you want to use the best tool for the job and you're going for that bodybuilder physique, training like a bodybuilder in a traditional gym sense is probably the best thing. So that I would say that's a con. I mean, depending on their goals. If someone's goal is to look like a bodybuilder, calisthenics might not be your best tool.
Yeah, because I think you may need to hit the body from multiple different angles. You may need to use lighter weights or have more variety when it comes to using different intensities to hit certain muscles from different angles. And you don't have that ability with calisthenics. It's not as easy to do.
You don't have the ability to isolate like you do at the gym. I haven't done a preacher curl in over probably 12 or 15 years, but if I was going to bodybuild again, I would want some way to do preacher curls and some way to really isolate those smaller muscle groups like biceps, triceps, deltoids, calves. Well, I can do calf raises anytime, but stuff like that. There's ways that there's a time and a place for isolating.
Yeah, definitely. And I agree with you with that. And I definitely the lower body. And I've had a similar response, whether it's on my channel, whether it's talking to people on Reddit. They do not like you insulting calisthenics, but being honest is the best thing is that you can work your legs. You can build pretty good looking legs, pretty strong legs with calisthenics. But if you want to maximize your potential for strength and size, you're going to have to use weights. Basically. And there's nothing wrong with that. I mean, if you've got access to a gym and you're going to a gym anyway, then some squats, some deadlifts, some trap bar, whatever it is, leg press if you want to use machines, but it has the capability of building your legs up. And I think this is why it's so important. What I brought up earlier is being open to it, because if you want to maximize, we've all got different goals. We've all got different things that we want to work with. There's also some of us have certain muscle groups that don't grow as well as other areas. And it might need a little bit of extra work. Like I've always found chin-ups is got my arms to grow as much as I want them to, but there are going to be some people that the bicep might be a lagging area for them, and having that option to be able to do some direct work might be better for them. I know you can do the ring ones where you're like leaning away and you can do the body weight bicep curls. I know you can do them, but it's far easier to grab a set of dumbbells and go from 10, 12, 14, 15 up to 20 kilos and have those increments there so you can really find the area that works for you than maybe doing a body weight one. I can't do body weight ones anymore. My pull-up bar will tip over. So, but having that option is valuable, I think.
Yeah, I'm glad you mentioned that, because I think some of those calisthenics like bicep curls and stuff, like you mentioned on the rings, they're hacks, right? They're not like a true isolation exercise, because you're still having to support your body center of gravity through the movement. You're engaging your entire body, so it's just not quite the same.
Yeah, so that the part of the benefit of calisthenics, it's very easy to utilize your whole body. But when you want to isolate, it can be a bit of a negative.
It's a negative, yeah. Like, have you noticed like rings, when you use rings, that you just like get leaner, or am I just weird and crazy? Like,
I've never noticed getting leaner. No.
Yeah, I don't know what it is, but that's why I didn't necessarily want to use that. Like, because I thought like, okay, maybe it's just like my eating patterns are changing and I don't consciously realize it. But whenever I use rings consistently as like the centerpiece of my program, I feel like my physique improves and like I get leaner, not necessarily bigger. And I thought, well, maybe it's because I'm using those deep stabilizers more, or I don't know what. But
when you do ring training, what sort of rep range are you working on? Does your whole training change, or is it just simply you add rings into your current program and nothing else changes?
Well, I mean, it's designed around the rings. I'm doing like dips, and chin-ups and rows with the rings. Yeah, I guess when you mention it, the rep range might be lower than it was previously.
But it's whether, like, 'cause obviously rings, you're using more muscles, aren't you? So maybe because you're working on muscles and muscles are having to work harder, are you burning more calories potentially by using the rings because they're just more taxing on the body? I'm a huge fan of rings as well. I think they're a fantastic tool.
Yeah, I've just noticed whenever I use them, my physique changes, like it leans out, and I don't know why that is. I figured it was those stabilizers, especially when you're over the rings on those exercises and you're above them. I feel really challenged, and maybe I'm just getting a little more out of each exercise. I don't know. But
so when the summer kicks in, you switch to rings?
I should, but I haven't. I haven't. Lately, I'm still using bars. So
have you tried weighted calisthenics on rings? Do you dabble with that much?
Just the pull-ups and chin-ups. I haven't tried dips or anything else weighted on rings.
Fair enough. Like I said,
How about you?
yeah, that's well. At the minute, I rarely do pull-ups on bars anymore. I
Oh, okay.
find a lot. It's weird. I prefer sometimes doing chin-ups, especially on the biceps and that, and it's easier to get into chest to bar. But sometimes I find if you do a lot of bar work, it can get a little bit uncomfortable on the wrists after a while. I don't know if it's the way I do them or what, I don't know. I just find that you get around that with rings. Like they're just better on the joints.
Yeah.
And I think because rings are harder, I'm using the angle 90s, or I've got some rock rings. I will get into doing finger pull-ups, but they've got like a nice little that you can hold on to, and it's got the rotation. I find it makes the pull-ups harder. So I've been doing them to try and say when I do go back to the bar pull-ups are easy in comparison. So I've been doing that. So and my ceiling isn't very high in my garage. So
I wonder if it's that rotational aspect, right? Because you can rotate the rings. So that's going to help your wrists because you have more freedom there to, yeah.
It's definitely the benefits of rings or suspension training is that ability to rotate. And I think if you're training a lot, trying to mitigate unnecessary stress on your connective tissue can really help for consistency in the long run. Because if you're doing a lot of, and I found this when doing weights as well, I don't know if you ever did, but if you're doing a lot of heavy lifting and a lot of bar work, it takes its toll on you, especially your joints. So if you can mitigate that, like I always found, you may be able to relate this to as well, that my shoulders felt so much better going to the ring dip than on the bar dip. I don't know what it is, because it's fixed or I can't find the right width for me, but whenever I move to rings, especially doing the dips, far nicer on my shoulders and my wrists, and everything just felt so much more comfortable, especially with stuff like the ring push-ups. I get a way better contraction in my chest. It's that ability to be able to bring them together.
Yes, it's like a fly. It's almost like a dumbbell fly or something.
Yeah, and, it's like a hybrid, isn't it?
Yes, on the pull-ups and chin-ups, I like to supinate my forearms on the way up. So I'm like rotating as I come up, and I feel like this extra engagement of the biceps when I do that.
Well, I think it's because the biceps are responsible for the supination.
Yes.
So obviously you're getting that in. So as well as the using the arms and pulling up, you're getting that as well. And I think it also helps get around for those people that can't pick between doing pull-ups and chin-ups. You can do both in one exercise.
Yeah.
So you get the best of both, I guess.
What's interesting though is I actually feel it more than like when I think about when I used to supinate on a bicep curl. You know what I'm saying? When I'm doing those ring chin-ups and I'm supinating on the way up, I mean, it's like, wow, I really feel it. So yeah, there's something magical about rings, and I don't know what it is exactly, but I love them.
I think it's part of the thing. I think, and it's part of the issue that you get with weight training is you're moving around the bar, and the bar isn't moving around you. So obviously the bar, when you say doing a deadlift or a squat, you want it to move in a straight line, and you have to move your body to allow that to happen. And I think that's why some people sometimes have issues, because you don't move in the way you naturally would, but you have to move in that way to allow the bar to travel in a straight line. Where if you're doing a pull-up and you've got a fixed bar, the way that your wrists would move, your elbows, your shoulders may not move the way that you want them to. Where if you have a ring, you won't even realize you're doing it. You may not even be intentionally rotating, but before you know it, you're there and you're already rotating. Or the width that you have, or what you pull apart, the way you do a dip, you don't realize that your body ends up moving how it wants to move, as opposed to you're moving from a bar and now you're moving the way that the bar is built. It could be that.
Yeah, that's a good point.
But I'm a huge fan of rings. I definitely recommend people to get into rings. And I don't think you have to be intermediate to get into rings. Like, I think you can use rings to do inverted rows. You can use them to do push-ups and stuff. And I think that they're not just a tool just for people that are more advanced. And at $20 or $30, would it be in America for a set of rings? Maybe plastic, unnumbered maybe, but it's a similar price here in the UK. And I don't think you can buy a fitness bit of equipment that's so versatile yet so cheap. You know, I think, and if you've got a door frame pull-up bar, hang them on there, and now you can do far more exercises. Well, I said I've got the duodynamic ones there, but a standard door frame one will do the job. Yeah,
I love those, the duodynamic Elavia and the rings. I travel with those whenever I go somewhere. I bring them with me.
Unfortunately, I went one place, and the one place I traveled had no door frames. I was like, damn. I brought them with me. Yeah, I think it was like a barn or something, or a conversion, and there literally was just no door frames. And I took them with me when I went to a hotel, and the only door frame in the bathroom, it had no real door frame, so I had nothing to attach it to. And I was like, damn. I brought them.
Yeah. Whenever I've traveled, maybe it's different here in the States, but like, you know, everything's been up to code, and I've always had somewhere to hang them. I find rings, not doorway rings, but the normal method of hanging rings to be very hit or miss. It's hard to find a reliable place to, I see people hanging them on tree branches, and I'm like, okay, if you really trust
Could
that
snap.
tree branch.
Yeah.
So
Yeah. Because that's the only problem with gymnastic rings. You need somewhere to attach it to.
yeah.
I know because you've done a lot of product reviews. I've done quite a few product reviews, and obviously you've done, I think it was the base bar one where you technically use it as a pull up, but it's freestanding. But you'll have something like that where it's like you have a freestanding pull up and it's perfect. But with a gymnastic ring, you still need somewhere to attach it to be able to use it. And it's the only problem I've really found with rings is that you need to find somewhere safe that you can use them to get the most out of them. And in some cases, if you found somewhere that you can do them, you can just do pull ups, and you can do dips and push ups anywhere really.
Yeah. I'm curious about how you came across the plant-based diet.
Okay. So it all stemmed from trying to save money, actually, originally. It's not as, it's a weird way in which I've gone around it. So I used to eat a lot of meat. I was, like I said, I was trying to get big as I could. I was eating a lot in one go. Like sometimes I was eating like 4 or 5 pork chops in one meal. Like I could eat a lot of food in one go. And I found that it was costing me so much money. And this is, I'm assuming it's the same in America. It is here in the UK, but the inflation, food prices, it's crazy now. Even back then, it was costing me a lot of money. And where I worked at the time, my manager was a vegetarian, and she had other reasons why she went vegetarian. But one of the reasons she goes, it's so much cheaper. And I thought, bugger it, I'll give it a go. Like I'm spending so much, as long as I can get enough protein. I thought back like that back then I'll give it a go. So did it a few weeks. I was just supplementing with lots of like dairies. I was drinking lots of milk, cottage cheese, all those different stuff like that. And I was just getting really bad bloating. But there was benefits to going vegetarian from other things like that. Apparently there was. And then while looking at vegetarian, there was always the things on Google where it was like vegetarian or vegan. I was like, I've never heard of vegan or plant-based before. So I thought, all right, I'll have a little look at it, look up some information. And then it all came up with those 15 chronic diseases. And if you go plant-based or vegan, you can dramatically reduce the chance of you getting it and all the health things. And I thought, I've never heard of it. My health is the most important thing. Health is wealth. And, you don't know what it's like until you're ill. Like I want to live as long as I possibly can, but I also want to have a good quality of life. So if changing my diet can do that, it's worth a go. And I didn't realize until I started looking it up how much nutrition plays a huge role in everything to do with your health. And you can even correlate it to I don't care about that, I just want to get big and strong. Your nutrition plays a massive role in building muscle, to recovery, inflammation, all those sort of things. So I then got on to watch a couple of videos on YouTube about it. And then I got onto nutritionfacts.org. And like that was just a treasure trove of information. Like normally you see people on YouTube and they're making these claims that you won't get heart disease or cancer, or you reduce the risk and all this sort of stuff. But how much credibility do these people have? And then suddenly you get this doctor that's going through this thing who's showing you all the studies and a video format. If you want to look through all the journals, you can. And then I just literally just got all of that. I read his How Not to Die book, and I was just like blown away with how much information is on there, what certain things, just like turmeric, how much of an impact it can have on your body, to amla, to all these different things, antioxidants. And I was just like blown away with it. I just went down a rabbit hole with it all. And then I watched, I think it was Forks Over Knives.
Yep.
And I was just like, okay, I'll give it a go. I've literally got nothing to lose. I've got nothing to lose, but everything to gain was my mindset. So most people go, oh, yeah, but imagine not eating this for the rest of your life. I was like, imagine getting to 50 and 60 and I've got to have stents, or, I've got to tell my family and my children that I might have cancer or diabetes, all these different things. I think I'd happily give up eating these foods that aren't great for you anyway, if it meant I would have a better quality of life and I could reduce the chance of getting any of these illnesses. I thought, if I get there and none of it is true, I've lost nothing. But if I don't do it, I've got everything to lose. So I thought, I'll give it a go, and I just experimented with it and just went along with it. I was worried about protein at first, so I was like supplementing with protein powders as well, but I was eating lots of legumes and beans and all that sort of stuff. So I think I was eating enough. I was still getting bigger. I was still performing in the gym. And then I think What the Health came out, I think. And I was just like, it was just reinforcement of, I think I'm doing the right thing. Mm-hmm. And then it's just now it was really difficult. I don't know what it's like in America. I think I've been vegan for about 7 or 8 years. I don't know what it was like in America for going out, but in the UK it was really difficult. Eating out you basically just had to make meals out of sides, and I'm more of a sweet person, so cakes or sweets and stuff, it was very difficult to get any options. And eating out, especially if you went abroad, like we went to Italy once, and it was hard to find, they didn't even know what vegan was back then, so trying to be able to eat when you went away was really difficult. But I was just like, I'm stubborn. So I was like, I'm going to see this through and go with it. And my blood pressure went down. My resting heart rate went down, recovering better. I was still able to maintain what I was doing in the gym. So I was just like, I can't see any drawbacks other than it's a pain in the ass to go and eat out. And if it pays off, like I think it would, then I was like, we'll stick going. And now, 7-8 years later, I'd never go back. Like I said, I gave up. I used to recreationally smoke when I was younger, like a social smoker. I used to go out and drink every single weekend. And then I was like, give that up. So I'm teetotal, and it's not hard anymore. I don't think I believe in that it's the best thing I can do for my health. And if I can live 80, 90, great. But I want to still have that independence when I get to that age. I'm going to do it now, hoping that it will pay off in the future.
That's interesting that it kind of was a domino effect. Like you adopted the healthier diet, and then you were like, why am I drinking? Why am I, and you made those other improvements in your lifestyle too.
Yeah. Yeah, because I think, when you're younger and you go out drinking and like you feel awful, and then you're like, I'm never doing that again. Yeah. And the next weekend comes and you go and do it again. And I think it was like the final time I did it, and I was like, I think it was something that Tony Robbins once talked about, that if you can associate pain to a particular action and real extreme pain, it can put you off from wanting to ever do that again. So it was their way of trying to get people to get over certain things. Is if you attribute pain to every time you think about doing that. So I don't know if I subconsciously did that. Like, I really, really don't want to feel like this anymore. And then it just had that trigger effect of, I don't want to drink anymore because I really don't want to be hungover anymore.
Yeah.
And then the idea of wanting to do it. And then I thought, well, it's not good for my health either. And I want to do this and I want to do that. So yeah, it kind of had a domino effect. And I think then the ethical side, I learned about the ethical side. And then that just reinstilled that I did the plant-based thing for my health, for selfish reasons, if you want to call it that. We've got to be selfish every now and again. I did it for me. And then when I realized that there's a effect that happens outside of me, I was like, well, again, it's just another thing to reinstate why I'm doing it. Yeah. But health was my main driver and still is my main driver.
Same here. But yeah, it's like you said, and it's like I think Dr. Michael Greger said it.
Mm-hmm.
It's really interesting how the diet that's healthiest for our bodies is also best for the environment and the animals on the planet. It's like win-win-win,
Mm-hmm.
So
yeah, you get more out of it. But yeah, like I said, when I make a shake and everything like that, his videos, I don't know if you know what amla is, if you use that, or
no.
Or Indian gooseberry, it might go over by another name.
I've heard of it. I've never used it.
So like I said, he did videos on how it was great for lowering blood pressure and blood sugar, and it's got other benefits. It's got like the most antioxidants you can have. And then he did turmeric on how it can be anti-cancer and all that sort of stuff. So his videos and stuff on YouTube and everything are just an amazing amount of information there that you can use, you can apply into your life and understand the reason, have it. But it was just amazing how what you eat can have such a profound effect on your body. And how I think in our society, we're brainwashed to a degree that if we get a chronic disease, it's purely down to our genes and we can't do anything about it. Your family are fat, you're going to be fat. If your family has cancer or heart disease, you're going to get it. And I think the powerful message that he put in his videos was that genetics play a role, but how we live our life and what we put in our body is a more powerful, what's the word? It's a more of a powerful factor in defining whether those things play out or not. And that was like, okay, well, sweet. Because I've had a close family member that had cancer. I've had other members that had it. And I thought, well, if I can take that into my hands and have control of that, then that's something I'm going to give. And if I get it all down the line, I can look back at it and think, I may have delayed it or I may never get it at all, but it's worth doing it, I think.
Yeah. Yeah. Dr. Campbell said it a slightly different way. He said, genetics load the gun, but lifestyle pulls the trigger.
Yeah.
And I think that's really genius because it's like what you just said. It's sure you've got those genes, but are you going to express those genes through your lifestyle? That's really,
in those videos, you start to realize that what we see as it was genetic and it was destined to happen, when really it was the lifestyles that those families were doing end up having the same results. So the parents ate loads and they were overweight, and it just happens that their kids were as well, and they end up adopting the same eating habits and the same lifestyle choices. So instead of it being genetically down to the bone that you were inevitably going to get that, it ended up being it was the lifestyle that they lived together that contributed to those people getting it. And I was just like, okay, well, if I've got that power in my hands, why not take charge of it? And same as I do with exercise, it's a powerful tool to hopefully prolong how long I live, but also the quality. Why not apply that to my nutrition as well?
Yeah. It's kind of funny when you talk about nutrition and fitness, people automatically just go right to protein and the macros. And it's like, dude, it's way beyond that, way beyond.
Yeah.
you know,
Because I think you start getting into like antioxidants and all the different
phytonutrients.
phytonutrients and things like that. You start realizing that the foods that we eat, it goes far beyond, like you said, protein, carbs, fats, or even just the vitamins that we think of. There's so much more and also not just there's vitamins in food, but it's also what are they paired with within the food that has a benefit to you that goes far beyond just calories. And building muscle. There's so many different. This is what's amazing about the human body is there are so many processes that are all going at once that they're all inevitably fueled by what you eat. So you need to give your body what it needs to be able to do what it needs to do. And we're placing stresses on our body all the time, from exercise to pollution, everything like that. The best thing we can do is give the body what it needs to be able to combat all of that. And nutrition is what we do. So I think that's the other thing is people know that smoking's bad for you, and it's bad to have inside your body. And I think they don't think that eating bad food is seen as the equivalent as saying, because you're still ingesting something into your body that can have a harmful effect.
Yeah, I agree 100%.
So what was your journey going vegan then?
So when I was lifting weights and bodybuilding, I started at age 16. I was a junior in high school. I bought a book. It was called Gaining Mass by Anthony Ellis. And it taught me to eat chicken breast and brown rice and broccoli and tuna, egg whites, different fish and whey protein shakes and all that stuff. And I ate a lot of protein. I was getting sometimes upwards of 200 grams of protein a day for years, and it caught up with me. When I was 25, went to the doctor for a checkup, and he took my blood pressure and he said, "You've got the blood pressure of a 75-year-old man and you're only 25." And I was like, what the hell is going on? Well, you mentioned Forks Over Knives. That documentary was just coming out. And I ended up calling a friend of mine from high school who I knew he went to college for dietetics. And I wanted to solve this. I didn't want to take prescription drugs. I never did. So I called him and I was like, "Mike, what do you know about this? What can I do to fix my blood pressure?" And it turned out I didn't even know it. He was living in my neighborhood. He was like 2 streets down from me. So he came over and he trained me, he coached me on eating a raw vegan diet. So not just vegan, but raw food. And it was life changing. I can't even tell you how much I detoxified, and like I was sitting on the toilet like 5 times a day in the beginning. Just so much had to come out of me. It was insane. After that first week, it got a lot better, and I just felt absolutely incredible. And then I saw Forks Over Knives near the end of that. I think it was 3 months that I ate raw. When I watched Forks, I was like, okay, here's all these doctors. They're medical doctors. They're showing reversal of heart disease and cancer and diabetes, and they're doing it on a cooked diet. So I was able to ease up a little bit and have somewhat of a social life. I hit the same problem as you did, where I live in the boonies and there's really not a lot of options for vegans out here. So me and my wife just kind of stayed in. And whenever we went out to like a party or a barbecue or holiday event, we would bring our own food. We would just prepare it ahead of time and bring, our own stuff to eat. We'd bring enough to share though. We wouldn't just have what we have. We would bring a whole thing for the community. My blood pressure went down, but so many health benefits from it. Everything from GI issues went away. My acne went away. Like just so much. I could go on with a list, but it was definitely life-changing. And it's now been 12 years. And like you said,
Wow.
there's no going back. I can't call myself a vegan because I've reintroduced fish and eggs in the past. And whenever I've done that, just to be like more social, like, oh yeah, I'll have some of that salmon. I don't like how I feel. And I go right back to vegan. So
what, you don't like how you feel emotionally or how you feel with your body?
both.
Both.
Yes. Yeah. It's more, believe it or not, it's more physical. If you add the fish or the eggs back in, I haven't even done poultry and beef in 12 years, but when I added fish and eggs back in, and it became like the first time I was like, oh, I feel fine, So then like a week later, I did it again. And the more frequent it became, the more I started to feel like not as good. Got that stuff out of me again. Went back to this. It's hard to describe when you're vegan. It's like this light feeling. I feel light, energetic, and clean. And it's just something you have to experience. I don't know. It's hard to describe.
Plant-based food tends to be a lot less in calories as well. So I think it's great for people that want to lose weight. Did you find that you lost a lot of weight doing it?
I did. Yes.
Yeah.
And I can't tell you it was all fat. Maybe some of it was lean mass. I don't know. But I feel better. And that's what's and I always, whenever people like say, well, you'd be bigger if you ate, some meat, I'm like, yeah, I'm not going to deny that animal protein is is more anabolic than plant protein. I think there's truth to that, especially because that animal comes with hormones. There was, an IGF-1, growth factors are in there, but that doesn't just grow muscle, it grows cancer. So it's not just about building muscle, it's about looking out for your health and longevity. That's really what it comes down to.
And you'll realize that as well is that, okay, you could be bigger, but that won't help your life in any way. And actually having too much muscle, being too big, isn't really good at all. I mean, like I said before, I went plant-based. I was 16 and a bit stone, and I was heavy and I did not feel comfortable. I think I used to wake up problems breathing. I think I used to have that sleep apnea at some point. And then it was just like, it's not nice being that heavy. So if you can lose that weight, and it's amazing how much that can make a difference to how you feel, your energy levels, how you move, joints, everything. And I think because it tends to be less, it's more nutrient dense in less calories, more nutrient dense. You'll find you'll lose a lot of weight, but you'll end up giving the body all these sort of vitamins, minerals, especially like you mentioned with the fiber and going toilets. A lot of people probably are. I think that Dr. Greger did a thing where he said, like, if you wanted to test how quick your tract was to eat beetroot or drink beetroot juice and time how long it went from here to there. And it would give you an idea of how efficient your tract is. And ideally you want it to be efficient. But yeah, you'll be surprised that there's so many more benefits than just losing weight that will come with it, that you don't know how good you feel. It's hard to explain, like you said, that people, I feel good, but like you don't know how good you feel until you start eating that way. And I notice, like, you may be able to attest to this as well, that if you ever eat junk food, vegan junk food or whatever, you eat it for a little and you feel lousy. And then when you go back to eating well, the difference it makes, it's night and day. And I don't think people realize how good it does feel eating that way.
Junk food does it, and for me, the animal products do it too. And there's people out there who are doing like a animal based diet, and they claim to be feeling great, and they say their health markers are great, and I'm like, okay, that's you do you, man. I'm gonna do me.
The carnivore diet, is that what you're referring to?
Yeah, there's people eating carnivore, there's people eating keto and they say they feel great, and I'm like, all right. I did a carnivore thing for a while. I tried Atkins, and I just went full carnivore for a short time. I honestly felt lethargic, but I never did keto. I never did the high fat keto thing.
Worst diet I did was actually vegan, keto, OMAD.
Wow.
that was hard. Like, I think I did that for like a month, and that was hard work.
Just a combination of all the dogmas put together.
Yeah, I thought, again, I was like, I'll see how it goes. I like eating lots in one big meal. I thought, oh, great, I get to eat all of it in one go. There's no harm in it. I'll give it a go. It's not sustainable, but it was one of those ones you think, if I cut out the carbs, I'll suddenly shred up and everything like that. So I was like, I'll give it a go, but I wouldn't recommend it.
Do intermittent fasting, or is that not part of your lifestyle?
I used to do it, but then when I switched jobs, it just became harder to do. I used to be able to go, I didn't have a set time with it. It literally was like, to start off with, I'll start progressively leaving it longer from when I wake up to when I eat. And I found it, because I can eat a large amount of food. If I have a larger eating window, it's very easy for me to overeat. So I thought, if I just shorten that window, it's just going to make it harder, the amount that I can get. And I definitely found that if I didn't eat, it made it far easier to control my appetite. If I had something light, it was like, within an hour, I'm ravenous. Where if I didn't eat, and I would normally push it back, say waking up at 6, I might eat at 12 or 1, and then I might eat until 6 o'clock, and then that would be it. But with the work that I do now, because it's a lot more physical, I don't think I'd be able to do it as well with it that way. I have done it, and I did enjoy it. In all fairness, it was quite nice, controlling the appetite a little bit more. I think it's a good little test to do for your body, so it's not so dependent on food all the time. Yeah, I haven't done it for. Are you doing it at the minute?
Yeah. I mean, I am weird with intermittent fasting, whereas I just listen to my body. So some mornings I'll wake up hungry and I'll eat at 9 or 10 a.m. Other days, like today, I haven't eaten yet. It's already 12:30. I'll probably eat after our call. Yeah, I just kind of go by how I feel. I wait till I'm nice and empty feeling, and I'm like, okay, it's time to eat. And I'm the same way. We have a lot in common, man. But like, I can eat. I can put away 1,000 calories in a meal is nothing. It's nothing.
That's a starter.
And, yeah. I'm going to make a smoothie after this call, and it'll easily be 800 or 1,000 calories, and then probably 2 or 3
hours. Do you drink it out the jug as well, or do you actually? I'm that big. I literally just eat it out of the jug.
Yeah, I can drink it out the blender pitcher.
Yeah.
I'll put it in a cup today, just because you said that. Mine
don't fit the cup, and it saves on dishes. So
there you go.
The jug. Yeah.
Yeah, mine are usually like 72 ounces or something, which is a lot. Yeah, I'll eat again a couple hours after that, 2 or 3. So I still get a good amount of calories. I'm getting 2,000 to 2,500 calories easy throughout the day. Today it'll just be in a smaller window. Whereas other days, depending on what how big my dinner was the night before, I might be hungry when I wake up, and I just listen to my body.
So going with that, and you mentioned about calories at this moment in time, do you have a goal when it comes to your aesthetics? Do you want to get bigger? Do you want to get leaner? Are you wanting to maintain? What sort of thing with, say, calories and training you're doing? Now you've moved to doing weighted calisthenics. Have you got a goal where you want to go with yourself at the minute? What would be your goal?
I guess aesthetically, I'm just trying to burn off some fat is what I'm trying to do. So I added some core work, trying to make my abs pop a little more. So I guess aesthetically, I'm trying to lean out, but I'm not like calorie counting or tracking. I don't do that unless I make a video. Some people, when I make a video about nutrition, they'll ask me like, well, how much protein did you get for the day and stuff like that. And I'll track it then. It's kind of funny. Some days I'm getting like 80 grams of protein, like really low numbers compared to what I used to get. And I don't care. I'm fine with it.
So did you find it hard to get over that you have to have a gram per pound of body weight? Was it quite hard moving from weightlifting and eating all that protein to like not caring so much about protein and then going, I'm sure it's enough, getting over that? Did you have not FOMO of protein, you could say?
Yes. Yeah, definitely. And then there is truth to it. I believe, so like they say 1.2 to 1.6 grams of protein per kilogram of body weight is good. And I think that's true. But I often fall a little below that. And I'm fine with it because unless I'm trying to put on mass, unless I'm trying to build my body aesthetically, I'm not going to worry about it. I'll still gain strength. That's the cool part is like I'll get stronger. I might not just put on as much lean mass. So
with that, because I've seen that as well, because most people go, oh, you should have a gram per pound. And then I'm like, no, it's probably closer to a gram per kilo and maybe up to 6, depend. I think most people go for 1.6 because they say that's for athletes, don't they? I think most people that go to the gym think they're instantly athletes when really they probably don't need still that much anyway.
Right.
But is that based on your weight or is it on your lean body mass that they base that off? So obviously if you're 100 kilos, but your lean mass is actually 60, 70 kilos, should you really be having 60, 70 grams? Or is it based off your overall body weight? Because it wouldn't make sense to base it off your overall body weight because it's the lean mass you're trying to grow, isn't it?
Yeah. I would base it on lean mass. And I know Nimai Delgado, who is a vegan bodybuilder, he says to use lean mass as well. I think when you're already somewhat lean, you can just use body weight and get the same kind of results. If you're overweight, then you'll definitely want to factor that in, because you might be adding, I don't know how many pounds of fat, but that'll skew your results. You'll be eating way more protein than you need. So
and you end up just pissing it out anyway, and you're wasting money. I mean, I don't know how I don't count. I eat maybe 4 times a day. I like my shake in the morning will have about 50 grams of protein in, and then my lunch will probably have anything from 30 to 50, and then my evening meal will probably have between 30 and 50. But that's just because I eat a large amount of food in one go, and it just so happens to have like I'll eat I don't know a block of tofu. I'll eat a whole block in one meal. And maybe a tin of beans with that as well. I like food, but so I don't normally struggle to get the protein, but I used to really worry about getting protein. I think once I went on holiday once and I sadly took a little Tupperware with protein powder in, so I thought I'm not going to miss out on the protein, so I took it with me so I could have my shakes in the morning. I look back thinking I'm an idiot, but it's easy to fall for it, isn't it? Because you trust these people that are big or that are in shape and they're telling you how much protein you should eat. You think, well, they're living it, they know more than me, so I'll do what they do. But I think start to learn it's not as much as you think, and it may not be as important as you think, possibly.
The training stimulus is way more important.
Well, I think was it Dr. Greger that mentioned that a certain amount of protein, but as long as you get enough calories, it's not as much of a factor. But obviously, if you're in a calorie deficit trying to lose weight, more protein is beneficial to try and hold on to as much muscle so you don't lose it, so to speak. Maybe more protein when you're trying to cut is handy. Do you use protein powder or?
No, not lately. Right. Sporadically. Right now I have a supplement that's BCAAs. So I'll put a scoop of that in my smoothie after a workout on my training days. But most people are going to think this is crazy if they were to hear this, but I've been purposely eating lower protein. I've been eating only fruits and vegetables till dinner. And I've been, my dinner is when I'll have some beans or tofu or tempeh and stuff like that. I've just been testing. I like to do experiments, and I experiment on my body. And I've actually noticed that there are benefits to a lower protein diet. Like I have more energy. I find it easier to lean out. There there is a certain point when you go below that like 1.2 to 1.6 range grams per kilogram that it's hard to put on the mass. And I think you'll naturally fall into that range. Like you said, like Dr. Greger said, if you eat enough calories when you're trying to put on weight, so you might be in a slight surplus, like a couple hundred calories surplus, you're just going to naturally fall into that range most likely. So you don't have to think about it. But I've been in a deficit. I've been eating only fruits and vegetables till dinner because I love raw food. And like I said, I was getting like 60 to 80 grams of protein some days would be my guess. And like I don't track it, but I just feel like that. But still, I'm going up, like I'm increasing weight on my lifts, I'm like my weighted calisthenics, and it's pretty interesting. I'm enjoying this experiment.
Yeah, because I think that's a good thing about it is with strength training is it's not always dependent purely on muscle, but that central nervous system training.
Yeah.
So that's the great thing about that training as well, is you've got that other benefit to other than just building muscle, is that you're fine tuning that and getting more efficient at that.